August 14, 1952, 2:17 in the morning. The sound of a nightstick cracking against bone echoed through the corner of 125th Street and Lenox Avenue. 12-year-old Marcus Williams tasted copper in his mouth as blood poured from his split lip. His left eye was already swelling shut. 3 white cops in navy blue uniforms stood over him, breathing heavy, knuckles bruised. The kid had done nothing, asked no questions, caused no trouble. He was walking home from his grandmother's apartment with a bag of groceries when Officer Patrick Sullivan decided the boy looked suspicious. That was the only reason. Marcus looked up through his one good eye and saw the face of the man who started it all. Sullivan was grinning, the nightstick still in his hand. What Marcus did not know, what those 3 cops could never have imagined, was that someone was watching from across the street. A man in a charcoal grey suit and a black fedora. A man whose name made grown men in Harlem bow their heads in respect and made corrupt cops check over their shoulders in fear. Ellsworth Raymond Johnson, Bumpy, and in exactly 72 hours, those 3 cops would learn what happens when you touch the wrong kid in the wrong neighborhood. To understand what happened next, you need to know who Bumpy Johnson really was in the summer of 1952. Born October 31, 1905 in Charleston, South Carolina, Bumpy was not just another gangster. He was a tactician, a chess player in a world of checkers. The bump on the back of his head that gave him his nickname was nothing compared to the bump he put in the heads of men who crossed him. By August of 1952, he controlled most of the numbers rackets in Harlem, but it was not about the money. It never was. Bumpy understood something the mob bosses downtown could never grasp. Power is not about fear, it is about respect. And in Harlem, Bumpy had both. He had just negotiated a historic deal with the Genovese crime family. Lucky Luciano himself had agreed that Bumpy would run Harlem independently, as long as the Italians got their cut. It was the first time in American history that a black man stood eye to eye with the white mob and walked away with his territory intact. But what made Bumpy different from every other crime boss in New York was what he did with that power. Every Thanksgiving he gave away turkeys. Every Christmas he threw parties for the neighborhood kids. He paid rent for widows. He covered funeral costs for families who could not afford to bury their dead. And Marcus Williams, bleeding on that corner at 2:17 in the morning, was his people. Officer Patrick Sullivan had been on the force for 8 years. He made $4,200 a year, lived in a small apartment in the Bronx with his wife Catherine and 2 kids, Patrick Jr. and Mary. But Sullivan had a problem. He liked to drink, and when he drank, he liked to hurt people, especially black people, especially kids who could not fight back. On that August night, Sullivan had 4 whiskeys in him from McSorley's Old Ale House. His partners, Officer Raymond Kozlowski and Officer Dennis Murphy, knew better than to stop him. They had seen what Sullivan did to cops who questioned him. Back in March, a rookie named Tommy O'Brien tried to pull Sullivan off a Negro street vendor. Sullivan broke O'Brien's nose with his elbow, told the captain the kid tripped. So when Sullivan grabbed Marcus by the collar and threw him against the brick wall, Kozlowski and Murphy just watched. And when Sullivan started hitting Marcus with the nightstick, they joined in. It took 90 seconds. 90 seconds to fracture a 12-year-old boy's ribs, to blacken both his eyes, to make him spit 3 teeth onto the sidewalk. When they were done, Sullivan looked down at the kid and said 6 words that would seal his fate. "You should have stayed inside, boy." Then they walked away, left Marcus bleeding on the concrete, left the bag of groceries scattered in the street, eggs cracked, milk spilling into the gutter, left thinking no one would care. They were wrong. Bumpy Johnson did not move from across the street until the cops turned the corner onto 7th Avenue. Then he walked over to Marcus, slow, deliberate, his leather shoes making no sound on the pavement. He knelt down beside the boy. Marcus was crying, trying not to make noise, trying to be tough the way his father taught him. Bumpy put his hand on the kid's shoulder, gentle, like a father. "What is your name, son?" "Marcus Williams, sir." The boy could barely speak through the swelling. His words came out thick and wet. "Where do you live?" Marcus pointed down the street with a trembling hand. "Apartment 3B, above Hagar's Barbecue." Bumpy knew the place, knew the owner, Ethel Waters, a singer who let families live upstairs cheap. He helped Marcus up, picked up what was left of the groceries, a loaf of bread, a dented can of beans, walked the boy home. When Marcus's mother, Lorraine, opened the door and saw her son's face, she screamed, a sound that cut through the summer night like a blade. Bumpy waited until she stopped, then he said something that would change everything. "I am going to fix this, Miss Williams, but I need you to trust me. Do not call the police. Do not go to the hospital tonight. Wait." Lorraine looked at this stranger in the expensive suit. Everyone in Harlem knew who Ellsworth Johnson was, the Godfather, the man who made the Italians back down. And she nodded. Because sometimes the law does not protect you. Sometimes you need someone who understands how the real world works. The next morning, August 15th, 7:32, Bumpy made 3 phone calls from the payphone outside the Red Rooster. The first was to a doctor he kept on payroll, Dr. Eugene Mitchell, a black man who graduated top of his class from Howard University Medical School in 1938, but could not get a job at any white hospital in New York. Mitchell had been patching up Bumpy's men for 12 years. He arrived at Marcus's apartment at 8:30 in the morning, carrying a black leather bag that smelled like iodine and old leather. Examined the boy. Took photographs with a Kodak Brownie camera. 47 photographs, every bruise, every cut, every broken bone. Documented everything in a leather notebook with fountain pen ink. 3 fractured ribs, orbital bone fracture around the left eye, torn ligament in the right shoulder. Contusions across the back and chest, consistent with blunt force trauma from a cylindrical object approximately 1.5 inches in diameter, a nightstick. The second call was to a lawyer, Malcolm Strauss, a Jewish attorney who owed Bumpy a favor from 1948, when Bumpy helped his brother escape a shakedown from dirty cops in Brooklyn. Strauss showed up at 9:15, wearing a pressed suit and carrying a briefcase that cost more than most people in Harlem made in a month. Took statements from Marcus and his mother, wrote down every detail in shorthand, times, locations, physical descriptions of the officers, everything. The third call was to someone no one expected, Father Michael O'Brien, an Irish Catholic priest from St. Charles Borromeo Church on West 143rd Street, a man who hated what Bumpy did for a living, but respected how he treated his community. O'Brien had baptized half the kids in Harlem and buried the other half's grandparents. Father O'Brien arrived at 10 o'clock, blessed the boy with holy water from a small vial, made the sign of the cross, promised to bear witness to what happened. Bumpy was building something, not just a case, a movement. What Sullivan and his partners did not know was that Bumpy had been watching them for 6 months. Ever since February, when a store owner on 128th Street named Abraham Cohen mentioned that 3 cops were shaking him down for protection money. $20 a week or they would shut him down for health code violations. Bumpy started following them, learning their patterns, their habits, their weaknesses. He knew Sullivan drank at McSorley's every Thursday night, knew he usually left around midnight, stumbling drunk, knew Kozlowski had a gambling problem, owed $2,300 to a bookie in Queens, knew Murphy was having an affair with a secretary from the precinct named Dorothy Kane, met her every Tuesday at a hotel on 42nd Street, room 207, always paid cash. Bumpy did not just react to violence. He prepared for it. He had learned this lesson the hard way during the war with Dutch Schultz in the 1930s. Schultz had power, had the law, had the Italian mob backing him. But Bumpy had something better, information and patience. He and his crew of 9 waged a guerrilla war, picking off Schultz's men one by one, because Bumpy knew their routines better than they did. And when those 3 cops put their hands on Marcus Williams, they activated a plan that had been months in the making. By noon on August 15th, Bumpy had something more powerful than guns or money. He had evidence, photographs, medical reports, witness statements, a priest's testimony, and he was about to use it in a way that would make history. The police chief of the 19th Precinct was a man named Thomas McAllister, 53 years old, Irish-American, born in Hell's Kitchen in 1899, 32 years on the force, started as a beat cop in 1920 and worked his way up through sheer determination and political connections. McAllister was not corrupt. At least, not in the way Sullivan was corrupt. He did not take bribes, did not shake down businesses, did not beat citizens for sport. But he had a different sin. He protected his own no matter what. When cops under his command did something wrong, McAllister buried it, transferred them to different precincts, made witnesses disappear, not through violence, through intimidation, through paperwork, through the bureaucratic machinery that crushed truth under the weight of procedure. He told himself he was maintaining order, maintaining the blue line, maintaining the fragile peace between the police and a city that was always one incident away from exploding. What McAllister did not understand was that Bumpy Johnson had been waiting for him to make exactly that mistake, because Bumpy did not just want to punish 3 cops. He wanted to change the system, and that meant going after the man at the top. August 16th, 10 o'clock in the morning. Bumpy walked into the 19th precinct wearing a 3-piece navy blue suit tailored on Savile Row, a silk tie the color of blood, and shoes polished to a mirror shine by a man in the Bronx who charged $5 a pair. He carried a leather briefcase that once belonged to a lawyer from the Genovese family. Inside were documents that could end careers. The desk sergeant looked up, saw Bumpy, reached for his gun. Bumpy smiled, raised his hands. "I am here to see Chief McAllister. I have an appointment." The sergeant, a man named Walsh with a red face and a belly that hung over his belt, was confused. Bumpy Johnson does not make appointments. Bumpy Johnson gets arrested, gets interrogated, gets thrown in cells. But when Walsh checked the log, there it was, 10 o'clock. Mr. Ellsworth Johnson. The appointment had been made by phone at 8:45 that morning by someone claiming to be from the mayor's office. Walsh made a call. 2 minutes later, Bumpy was escorted upstairs by 2 uniformed officers who kept their hands near their weapons. McAllister was waiting in his office. A big man, 6'2", 220 pounds, red face from high blood pressure and 30 years of stress. Grey hair cut military short. He did not stand when Bumpy walked in, sat behind his desk like a king on a throne. "What do you want, Johnson?" Bumpy sat down without being asked, crossed his legs, opened his briefcase with the deliberate care of a surgeon preparing instruments, pulled out a manila folder, slid it across the desk. "I want justice for Marcus Williams." McAllister opened the folder. His face went pale. Not white, pale, the color of old newspaper. Inside were the photographs Dr. Mitchell had taken. Marcus's face swollen beyond recognition, his ribs wrapped in bandages, his eyes blackened shut. Below the photographs were the medical reports, typed on official letterhead from Dr. Eugene Mitchell, M.D., Howard University Medical School, class of 1938. Below that were witness statements, 3 people who saw what happened, signed, notarized. Below that was a letter, written on the official stationery of St. Charles Borromeo Church, signed by Father Michael O'Brien. Below that was another letter, this one signed by 67 residents of Harlem, all demanding an investigation, all threatening to go to the newspapers if nothing was done. The New York Amsterdam News, the Pittsburgh Courier, the Herald Tribune. McAllister tried to play it cool. "This is a serious accusation. We will investigate. Internal Affairs will look into it." Bumpy leaned forward. "No, you will not investigate. You will take action. Today." McAllister slammed his fist on the desk. A paperweight shaped like an eagle jumped. "You do not come into my precinct and make demands. You do not walk in here like you run this city." Bumpy did not flinch, did not blink, did not move. "I just did. And unless you want every newspaper in New York to run this story tomorrow morning, you will listen very carefully to what I am about to say." The room went silent. Outside, typewriters clacked, phones rang, cops laughed about something in the hallway. But inside McAllister's office, the air was thick enough to cut. Bumpy spoke slowly, deliberately, every word measured like gold. "You have 3 cops who beat a 12-year-old boy for no reason. I have proof, I have witnesses, I have a priest. I have a community ready to riot if justice is not served. So here is what is going to happen. You are going to suspend those 3 officers, without pay, today. You are going to open a formal investigation, not internal, public. You are going to contact the district attorney's office and recommend charges, assault, battery, violation of civil rights. And you are going to issue a public apology to Marcus Williams and his family, in person, in front of the entire community." McAllister laughed, a bitter, angry laugh that sounded like breaking glass. "You are out of your mind if you think I am apologizing to some kid from Harlem, to some Negro boy who was probably doing something wrong anyway." Bumpy stood up, buttoned his jacket. "Then you are going to explain to the mayor why Harlem is burning." He walked to the door, stopped, turned back. "You have until Monday, 5 o'clock. I will be waiting at the Abyssinian Baptist Church with Marcus, his family, and about 500 very angry residents of Harlem. Reverend Adam Clayton Powell Jr. will be there. Malcolm Little will be there. Every newspaper in the city will be there. You can show up and make this right. Or you can watch your career end on the front page of the Times. Your choice, Chief." What McAllister did not know was that Bumpy had already spoken to 3 newspaper reporters. James Hicks, from the New York Amsterdam News, a young black journalist who had been covering police brutality in Harlem for 3 years. Wendell P. Alston, from the Pittsburgh Courier, a man who once interviewed Bumpy about the numbers rackets and earned his respect by refusing to print lies. And Peter Keese, from the Herald Tribune, a white reporter tired of the NYPD covering up brutality, tired of watching his editors kill stories because they were politically inconvenient. Bumpy gave them everything, on background, off the record, for now, but he made it clear, if McAllister did not show up Monday, the story would run Tuesday. And it would not just be about 3 cops beating a kid. It would be about a police chief who protected them, about a system that allowed it to happen, about a city that looked the other way while black children bled in the streets. Bumpy was not just fighting for Marcus. He was fighting for every black kid in Harlem who had ever been beaten, arrested, or killed for no reason. Every kid who looked suspicious because he existed. Every mother who opened her door to find her son's face destroyed. And he was going to win. Not with violence, not with guns, but with something far more powerful. The truth. Saturday and Sunday were the longest days of Thomas McAllister's life. Saturday morning, he called the mayor's office, spoke to an assistant named Richard Davenport, explained the situation. Davenport listened, said he would call back, never did. Saturday afternoon, he called his union rep, a man named Vincent Moretti, who had protected cops for 20 years. Moretti told him to stall, to delay, to make the problem go away, but offered no solutions. Saturday night, McAllister could not eat dinner. His wife asked what was wrong. He told her nothing. She knew he was lying. Sunday morning, he went to church. St. Patrick's Cathedral, sat in the back pew, tried to pray. The words would not come. After Mass, he called Father Kelly. His priest, his confessor, asked for guidance. Father Kelly asked one question. Did those cops beat that boy? McAllister went quiet, because he knew. He had already talked to Sullivan, Kozlowski, Murphy, brought them into his office Friday afternoon, asked them what happened. Sullivan said the kid was resisting arrest. McAllister asked what crime. Sullivan said loitering. McAllister asked if there was a report. Sullivan said he forgot to file one. Kozlowski and Murphy nodded along, backing his story, but McAllister knew they were lying. A 12-year-old with groceries does not resist arrest, does not get beaten for 90 seconds by 3 grown men, does not lose teeth over loitering, but admitting that meant admitting failure, meant admitting the system he protected was broken, meant admitting he had spent 32 years defending men who did not deserve defending. Sunday night, McAllister sat in his living room. The radio played jazz. Duke Ellington, Take the A Train. His wife, Catherine, sat beside him on the couch, knitting something, a scarf. She was always knitting. Tom, she said, you have to tell me what is wrong. He looked at her, 51 years old, grey hair, kind eyes. They had been married 29 years. She knew him better than anyone. He told her everything, about Marcus Williams, about Sullivan and the other 2, about Bumpy Johnson and the Ultimatum, about the choice he had to make. When he finished, Catherine put down her knitting, looked at him with tears in her eyes. Tom, you have to do the right thing. For once in your life, do the right thing. Those are not your men you are protecting. Those are criminals with badges, and that boy deserves better. We all deserve better. McAllister did not sleep that night. At 4 in the morning, he sat at his kitchen table drinking coffee that tasted like ash, watching the sun rise over the Bronx. At 6:30, he made his decision. Monday, August 18th, 4:30 in the afternoon. The Abyssinian Baptist Church on West 138th Street was packed. 500 people, maybe more. The pews overflowed into the aisles. People stood against the walls. The church smelled like sweat and perfume and Sunday clothes worn on a Monday. Marcus Williams sat in the front row with his mother Lorraine, his face still swollen, both eyes blackened, purple and yellow, ribs wrapped in bandages under a white shirt his mother ironed that morning. Beside him sat his grandmother, his 2 younger sisters, his uncle who worked at the post office. Bumpy Johnson stood at the back, arms crossed, watching, waiting. He wore a different suit today, charcoal grey, a red pocket square. He looked like a businessman, a diplomat, not a gangster. Beside him stood Malcolm Little, the young minister from Temple No. 7, who would later change his name to Malcolm X. Beside Malcolm stood Reverend Adam Clayton Powell, Jr., congressman, civil rights leader, a giant of a man with a voice that could shake buildings. The reporters were there too, notebooks out, cameras ready. At 4:55, a black sedan pulled up outside, door number stamped NYPD. Thomas McAllister stepped out, alone, no bodyguards, no other cops, no lawyers. Just him. He walked through the crowd. People shouted at him, cursed him, called him every name they could think of: pig, racist, coward, murderer. He kept walking, head down, face red, hands shaking. When he reached the front of the church, Reverend Powell was waiting. Stood like a wall, did not shake McAllister's hand, did not smile, pointed to the podium. McAllister walked up the 3 wooden steps, each one creaking under his weight, looked out at the crowd, 500 faces, all staring, all judging, all waiting. He cleared his throat. "My name is Thomas McAllister. I am the Chief of Police for the 19th Precinct. I have been a police officer for 32 years. I have served this city with honor. Or at least I thought I did." He paused. The crowd was silent. Not a sound. "I am here today because 3 officers under my command committed an act of violence against an innocent child. Marcus Williams, a 12-year-old boy who was walking home with groceries." He turned to Marcus, looked the boy in the eyes. "There is no excuse for what happened, no justification. Those officers have been suspended without pay pending a full investigation. They will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I have personally contacted the District Attorney's Office to recommend charges of assault, battery and violation of civil rights. But that is not why I am here." He took a breath. "I am here to say something that should have been said 4 days ago. I am sorry. I am sorry that my officers hurt you. I am sorry that the badge they wear, the badge that is supposed to protect you, was used as a weapon against you. I am sorry that I created a culture where men like Officer Sullivan felt they could do this without consequence. I am sorry that it took a man like Mr. Johnson to force me to do what I should have done the moment I found out what happened." His voice cracked. "And I am sorry to your mother, to your family, to this community. You deserve better. You have always deserved better, and I failed you." The church was still silent. Then someone started clapping, slow, deliberate. It was Marcus's mother. Then another person clapped, then another. Soon the entire church was applauding, not for McAllister, for themselves, for finally being heard. McAllister stepped down from the podium, walked over to Marcus, knelt down, extended his hand. The boy looked at his mother. She nodded. Marcus shook the police chief's hand. "It is going to be better," McAllister said. "I promise you it is going to be better." What happened in the Abyssinian Baptist Church on August 18, 1952, made the front page of every newspaper in New York. The Amsterdam News ran the headline, "Police Chief Apologizes to Harlem Boy After Beating." The Pittsburgh Courier ran, "Justice Comes to Harlem." The Herald Tribune ran, "NYPD Chief Makes Unprecedented Public Apology." Pater Keese wrote a 3,000-word article detailing the entire incident. The photographs Dr. Mitchell took were published. Marcus's face on the front page. The city could not look away. Within a week, Sullivan, Kozlowski, and Murphy were indicted. Within a month they were tried. Sullivan got 5 years, Kozlowski got 3, Murphy got 2. It was the first time in New York City history that white police officers were convicted of assaulting a black child. The precedent changed everything. Police departments across the country took notice. Some started internal reforms, others doubled down on protecting their own. But the message was clear. The people of Harlem would not be silent anymore. Bumpy Johnson never asked for credit, never gave interviews, never claimed victory. The night after McAllister's apology, he visited Marcus at his apartment, brought him a chess set, taught him how to play. "This game is about thinking 3 moves ahead," Bumpy said, "about protecting your king, about knowing when to sacrifice a pawn and when to go for checkmate. Life is the same. Always think ahead, always protect your people, and never let anyone make you feel like you do not matter." Marcus asked why Bumpy helped him. Bumpy smiled. "Because someone helped me once, when I was your age, when I was getting beaten in the streets for having a bump on my head and a thick accent. Someone stood up for me, taught me how to fight back, not with fists, with my mind. And now I stand up for others. That is what power is for, not to hurt people, but to protect them." Bumpy Johnson died 16 years later, July 7, 1968, heart attack at Wells Restaurant. He was 62 years old. When the news spread through Harlem, thousands mourned. They remembered the man who negotiated peace with the Italian mob, the man who gave away turkeys every Thanksgiving, the man who made a police chief apologize. Marcus Williams was 28 years old when Bumpy died. He had graduated college, become a lawyer, spent his career fighting police brutality. When reporters asked him why, he told them about August 18, 1952, about a man in a charcoal gray suit who taught him that power is not about violence. It is about protecting the weak, about standing up when everyone else sits down, about demanding justice even when the system says no. The story became legend, passed down through generations, a reminder that even in the darkest times, even when the law fails, there are people who will fight, not with guns, not with hate, but with courage, with evidence, with the truth. Bumpy Johnson was many things: a gangster, a criminal, a killer. But he was also a protector, a strategist, a man who understood that real power comes from serving your community. And on August 18, 1952, he proved that one man with a plan can change the world, or at least change one 12-year-old boy's life. And sometimes that is enough. The lessons remain. When you see injustice, you document it. You gather evidence, you build a case, you force the powerful to face the powerless. You make them look into the eyes of the people they hurt. You make them say the words, "I am sorry," because those words have power. They change cultures. They set precedents. They tell the next Marcus Williams that his life matters, that his pain matters, that he is not invisible. Bumpy Johnson understood this, and that is why, 73 years later, we still tell his story.